I could get $1 million. I can make one call right now and get $1 million easier than you can for your $100,000 house, right? Like, done. Doing a $150,000 deal or doing a $15 million deal, it takes the same amount of work.
I'm assuming you started with like small local banks. Did they have to underwrite you as an individual, even though it was a larger deal?
It was just a natural progression. We started with hard money lenders on single family houses. Then we said we got to refinance, and we went to a local bank here that's based out of York. They changed our careers. We're like, oh, cool. We got $2 million to spend. Let's go buy a bunch of properties and do it.
What made you write the book?
To share information without having to get on the phone with someone every single day. In this way, we can help a lot more people than just one person that I'm talking to at that time.
Welcome to the Everyday Millionaire Show with Ryan Greenberg and Nick Kalfas.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Millionaire Show. We're here with Ian Horowitz. Said that right?
Yep.
Ian Horowitz. Yep. Good. Ian, pleasure. I was just telling you, actually, I saw our VAs talking to each other, and I noticed your name. I read your book a while ago, Subsidize. It was a great book. So we'll talk about that. Thanks for coming out today, man.
Yeah, man. You know, it's we were just talking about doing in-studio podcasts versus like Zoom, and like I know we would have connected via Zoom, but these are always better because you can feel people. That sounds horrible, but feel people, understand what's going on, and I personally enjoy it. This is the best, reason to do them is to get out and talk to people and meet new, people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're local here, right? Somewhere?
Our office is over in Lutherville. I don't know if you know our backstory much, but me and my business partner were both firemen for the city of Baltimore. And then when we left the fire department a few years back, I actually moved back to Philadelphia for some personal reasons for my wife's family. But I guess that's why you try to have success, so you can do those fun things. But we're slowly but surely moving our office up there, but we still have a lot of real estate holdings right here in Maryland.
All right. So the whole operation's moving to Philly?
Well, me and Dan and those that can't see, Sean, our intern, now full-time employee, will be hanging out with us. But yeah,
nice.
For the most part, Dan and I will be together, which is good for synergy, right? Like, you know, when you have your business partner in the office every day, again, it's way different than talking on the phone every day versus in there and working off each other. And then we have a pretty big staff down here. We have, a few maintenance guys, 2 project managers, and an office admin, and they'll all remain here and work out of one of our apartment buildings that we have over in Northeast Baltimore.
Nice. So, I want to talk about the transition from being a full-time fireman. I was a full-time public school teacher for a while and then transitioned full-time into real estate as well. So have some similarities there. And what did it look like in the beginning of you? Was it just like an idea to build on your retirement and buy a couple houses, or did you have this dream to start this organization that you have now?
My real dream was to be a big city fireman. Dan and I both grew up outside of Philadelphia, and at the time, this is post 9/11, right? Like, we graduate high school 2000, 2001. 9/11 happens. Now all of a sudden, everyone wants to be a fireman, right? Like, it's always been a sought after job, but that really put it in the limelight. So we started testing all over the place. The problem in Philadelphia was we lived in the suburbs. You had to physically live in the city to take the test, and more importantly, you had to physically live in the city for your whole career at the time. And I was like, well, I'm not doing that. So a couple of our friends tested down here. So we ended up, long story short, becoming firemen down here in Baltimore City after testing all over the place. And then very quickly did we realize Dan gets hired in 2007. I get hired in 2008. By the end of 2009, we're getting furloughed. They start messing with our pension. They start changing our work schedule, closing companies, and on top of that, you got to remember, financial crisis, Detroit's pension goes bankrupt. California, teachers and every pension, like across the U.S., you start seeing pensions going bankrupt. And you're like, so you're telling me I'm going to work for the next 30 years. I'm going to trust that Baltimore City
is investing correctly,
and that my retirement's secure because we don't pay Social Security. And I was like, bro, I don't know, man. And can I say I always had the entrepreneurial spirit? Yeah, I was always like, all right, how can I make extra money? But I never really put it all together. So to say I was going to go out and create this, no. To say that I wanted to be a big city fireman and live out that dream, that was 100% true.
So how did the investing start? Did you have friends that were already investing and you decided to do it, or was Dan already involved in it in some way and you guys came together? What did that look like?
Yeah, so we kind of took 2 different paths. It's we have a couple years on the job, no overtime. Like, how are we gonna make extra money? and we would work side jobs, electric, tile, landscaping, whatever it was. Everyone's hustling, trying to make a buck. And my in-laws actually sold and serviced like outdoor power equipment, lawnmowers, that type of thing. And they had a customer every year that came in and was like, would always buy a new mower every year. And like, hey man, what happened? You didn't buy a new mower this year? He's like, well, I've been buying a house a year for the last 30 years, and I retired, and they're all paid off. I was like, damn, that sounds good. And so that kind of sparked my interest. And also side by side with that, I'm in an industry that I can get killed, incapacitated. What if I want to start a family? How's my wife going to take care of a landscaping company or anything in between? I was like, at least with real estate, you could take it over, give a property manager, sell them off, make the money back. More importantly, how do I make money while I'm asleep at work? That was my biggest thing. I was like, someone's living in my house. I make money every second of the day as long as they're staying in my house. That's the path that I took in a short version. And Dan actually he got caught up in the '08 financial crisis, bought a house not too far from here in Owings Mills, got jammed up, upside down, and he needed cash to pay off some, credit cards and a few other things. And he started wholesaling, and that's how we teamed up. We both had a similar interest of like, we knew the fire department, we loved it, but we knew somewhere deep down inside of us that was not the long-term solution to what we wanted to do. So,
yeah, it's hard living on the kind of the public service salary and trusting that is going to take you to the end, especially now with, we got through 2008, 2009. Now we have all this crazy inflation, and those jobs, teachers, firemen, they didn't really get paid more to match the cost of living.
Dude, I'm sure it was the same thing as a teacher. Like, I say it every time, man. It's like the unions, and I don't want to make this political, but the unions take your money and they sit there and we fight over 3% or 2%. I'm like, guys, 3% is like $25 a paycheck. This is not going to change your life. Like, be financially secure. If you guys become financially secure as a whole, we can then be a real union and then go fight for something that's worth it to us and get paid a real substantial. I mean, inflation's what, 8, 9, 10% if it's actually reported correctly. And these guys are fighting over 1.5%, 2%.
Right.
It's funny to look back now. It's like, I have no clue how I survived on that salary. So
did you how big did you grow your landscaping? And then when you and Dan started working together, was he just wholesaling, and did he reach out to you and say, hey, do you want to buy one of these wholesale deals? And then how did the partnership really form at that point?
Yeah, so we grew up together outside of Philadelphia. I mean, I've known his wife since I was about this big. So basically what happened was, I would work side jobs. It wasn't nothing formal. It was like, I got 4 days off, I'm going to go make $1. And we'd just sell jobs. I'd work for other guys, kind of play that game. And I started buying some houses. Dan starts wholesaling. He's like, actually, I went to a fire, and we put the house out. A couple months later, Dan's like, hey, I got this house over on Herkimer Street. You want to buy it? I was like, well, this is a full circle moment. We had it on fire a few weeks ago while I was at work. Yeah, we should 100%. I'm going to 100% buy it. He made $5,000. I bought it for $5,000. It was a win-win. And then after that, he came back, and he was doing some work for me, and it was a real good relationship. And then one day he was like, hey man, I got these 4 houses. I want to wholesale the whole package. Let's figure this out. I want to wholesale 3 of them, and I want to flip the last one. I was like, all right, let's do it. Well, I was selling some turnkey rentals at the time, and 2 of them were turnkey rentals. So I sold those 2. He wholesaled the other one down in Cherry Hill, and then the last house in Pigtown we fixed and flipped. And at the time, I mean, that was 2014-ish. The market wasn't heavy. We sold that thing for $125,000. We made 6 figures on the whole package, and that was like cool. Mm-hmm. And then we went and did another one 6 months later, and I was like, yo, can you keep finding deals? He's like, yep. And I was like, all right, I'll go find us money. You find us deals. Let's go do this. And off we went, and that was it, man.
That was like the golden era of wholesaling too back then.
Yeah.
It was like not everybody was in it, and it was like, I felt like I started buying houses in 2016, and it's like it was hard to miss at that time. It's like basically anything you bought, you could make something on. Yeah. Now it's obviously tightened up a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think technology's advanced a lot of people. You got a lot more nationwide wholesalers and all that stuff. Right. But even on top of that, like everyone's like, oh, dude, you knew exactly when to buy. I'm like, no, I just was dead goddamn broke. I didn't have a choice, and I
Right.
bought this house because when I wound up buying a rental property first before I ever did anything with Dan, and I made $500, $600 a month cash flow, and I was like, dude, that was like crack to me, dude. Overtime shifts, I was getting like $300 extra in my paycheck. I was like, dude, one house just got me 2 overtime shifts that weren't even available, and I was like, yo, I'm doing that again, and that's really what set me off. But yeah, 100%. We hit the tailwinds just right. Like, we had no clue, but from 14 to 19, you could do whatever you want, and it was hard to miss, which helps you make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah,
and get you
there's
out
a
of
little
those
room.
mistakes.
There's a little
Yeah.
room to make mistakes. Well, it's interesting you said about your job security, because a lot of people think about these public service jobs, the firemen, the teachers, and stuff, that they are recession-proof, depression-proof, whatever you want to say, and it seems like that wasn't the case. Like, how does that work? Because during a financial crisis doesn't necessarily mean there's less fires, right? So how are they shutting down? Are they just overworking other firemen? Like, how does that kind of work?
So Baltimore and most big cities, if you guys really knew what happened behind closed doors, is you're nothing more than a number. That's it, right? Like, and they just look at it and say, well, we can't afford it, so we're not hiring anybody. So then there's a shortage in personnel, and they just start what they call rolling brownouts, and it happens in Philly, Baltimore, Detroit, you name it, it happens. And basically it's just rolling brownouts. And like, if you lived in Federal Hill, you would never know that the firehouse on Light Street's closed down that day because you don't think about it, right? Or the person in Sandtown doesn't think that the firehouse on Lafayette Avenue shut down. They just know if they call 911 shows up because we're firemen and we're idiots, right? And we would do it. So yeah, you would think that job security's there, but here I am, I'm getting hired in 08, Dan gets hired in 07, and they're talking about laying us off. And I'm like, laying us off? Like, I just traded in everything, working 80 hours a week to have job security, and it's not there. And that, I think, I tell people all the time, is like, our advancement in our real estate career is really a byproduct of them forcing our hands by not being overtime, by not having career advancement, by not paying us more money. It was like, you know what? You put me against the wall. I got to figure out how to secure a future. And, you know, you hit it just right. I got hired when I was 25. Dan was like, I guess he was 25 too. You know, by 30, everyone knows your wife wants to have kids, and like at the end of the world, and you're like, how do I afford childcare? It's like $65,000 fireman salary ain't paying that. You know, I can barely afford my mortgage. And I think they put your back against the wall. And those that want to live in the system, it's the best job in the world. I didn't graduate. I didn't go to college. Dan didn't go to college. It's the best high school educated job I can find that pays well, and it's fun, and you don't need to think a lot. Like, you do, but you don't. It's no, I don't want to call it a mindless job, but you know what I mean. It's like you get to go to work and have fun, so it's a no-brainer, right? But then in the same sense, it's like, if you really want more for your family and create legacy and create generational wealth and have opportunities, you know, like when I quit, my father-in-law got sick with cancer. He's since now passed, but when my wife called me up and, you know, she's like, well, I want to move back home and be with my dad. I'm like, well, this is why you invested in real estate. If I still had the job with the fire department, she would have been traveling up and down 95 every day to go see her father until he passed, you know?
Which fire station were you located at?
I was at 13 engine and 16 truck, which is at McCullough and McMecken. So if you watch the riots, the CVS that was on fire, that's like literally our first due. Like, we're right on the border of Bolton Hill, Druid Hill, Reservoir Hill, right there in the cut of all
1-7.
It's a little rough area.
But yeah, 217. Yep, 100%.
Nice.
So you mentioned when you guys had that 4-package deal that you decided to wholesale some, keep one, flip another. How did you determine back then which deals you were going to hold on to and which deals you would wholesale or flip?
Yeah, then it was just really like, hey, because like Dan and I weren't really formalized as a business. I was also still had the ability to find deals because, again, like you said, you could find a deal. All you had to do is turn the corner and someone else has got a deal. So I was like, well, why would I buy a turnkey rental off Dan if we can wholesale them and make 50 grand there and make another 50 grand on the flip or whatever the numbers were? It worked out to 6 figures and was like, you know what? It's a cash grab. And we decided to do it that way. Now what we do is once a month we sit down, everyone, Dan, myself, our 2 project managers, we all sit down and we say, what deals do we want to keep? What deals don't we want to keep? And we just continue to burn out the bottom 20% and refine the portfolio till it gets better and better and better. So it's a much more refined system. Then it was just cash, dude. It's like, how do I get cash?
Yeah.
So that 20% that you take off, that's not only like new deals that you have in the pipeline, but it could be like a deal that you had for 6 months or a year, and you just decided that this deal isn't cash flow, and I'm going to try to get rid of it.
I'll be transparent and honest. We had this property on Frederick Avenue, right at the county line, basically in the city. It was a 47-unit apartment building. Wound up being a headache with some legacy tenants. It was a foreclosure that was in bankruptcy from COVID, completely mismanaged. Did we own the thing? We wound up having a fire in it because of a tenant we were evicting. And in 12 months, we said, you know what? That's it. It's gone. Like, it's just that operational headache. We couldn't see the path forward. It sat right on Frederick Avenue. It's just like, you know what? Cut our losses. Let's get out. We're going to break even from our insurance and from selling it. We'll break dead even, whatever. It's a loss. Not a loss, but we didn't get to see it through. But in the same sense, you know what? Mentally, we're in a better spot because we don't have that operational burden. It doesn't burden, like when I got employees showing up and they're getting threatened to, be killed. We had a tenant try jumping one of our employees. I'm not putting my employees at risk like that anymore. Cut it. We're done. Keep it moving. And that's, it is what it is. So yeah, it doesn't matter the time frame. Obviously, you want to try to get over that 12-month mark so you don't have to pay the government extra money.
So in the beginning, you were buying single-family houses, and now there was some transition to multifamily, and I know self-storage. You're into the self-storage game a little bit. How did that transition happen, and what did it look like? Why did you decide to do it?
Yeah, I would say, and you guys probably saw this. If you got in 16, you started to catch that rising price. Like, it really went crazy from like 18 to 19, in my professional opinion. You guys were
and then after COVID,
you guys were Pigtown guys too. So we were buying shells for $5 to $25,000. Next day they're $40, $50,000. I'm like, well, wait, rent didn't change, value didn't change. What are you guys doing?
Right.
Like, I'm lost.
I was buying houses on Patterson Park for like $30,000 that are now shells are like $150.
Yeah, and you're like, well, I should have never renovated. I should have just sat around and waited 2 years and sold the damn thing. But yeah, it's crazy, right? So with that being said, it was like we just kept getting squeezed. But also what we had was we started to build a track record. Guys at the Firehouse, it's a scam. It's a scam. This Section 8 shit, they're giving you all the crap in the world. And you're just like, okay, buddy, like, it's working for me. But then a couple dudes are like, yo, dude, what are you doing? And then you got a couple other guys, like the guy I co-host my podcast with. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? How can we work together? I'm like, well, for $500 a month cash flow, there's really nothing to work together on. I'm not working for a little bit of money.
Right.
And so between the pricing and people wanting to start to figure out how to work with us, we said, all right, let's figure this out. And I would just sit north in Pensy, where the CVS that was on fire. I would literally just sit on my phone 3 o'clock in the morning while we were on medic runs, just looking at other people's OMs. How are they setting up deals? How are they doing this? How are they making commercial deals work? Because I didn't understand the syndication model, raising capital. How are these guys making money?
And you were still a fireman at that time.
Still a fireman, yeah. And it was just like, there really wasn't much deal flow. I get bored very easily. I'm like okay, well, what are we doing next guy? Dan and Ryan in my office he's very much like stability. All right, we bought all this shit. How do we fix it? And I'm like, well, no, we need to buy more shit. And then you guys can fix that too. Like, let's go, And so it just really was a natural progression of like, oh, cool. 6,000 square foot industrial building came up on Asquith Street. The guy's willing to own or finance it. We only got to show up with $20,000. Let's do it, or $50,000, whatever it was. Cool, let's do it.
Was that your first one? Your first multifamily, or not multifamily, but commercial deal?
No, that was a commercial deal. That was like a true commercial deal. I think that was the first one we did. We did a couple 2 units here and there, but
how did you underwrite something like that? Was it kind of just like a warehouse space?
Yeah, it was a lot of reliance on a broker that we knew, and I was like, all right, well, if I check every box, this seems to make sense. You know what? For the small financial risk, we'll try it out. And if nothing else, kind of like what I talked about with that Frederick Avenue property that we just did, nothing else, we'll just turn around and sell it and not make $1. It is what it is.
And was that already rented, or did you have to find a tenant for that?
No, so the guy was he was moving his business. He used to like embroider shirts and stuff like that, like a lot of print type stuff. Like, he did that stuff for the NBA Combine. Under Armour sent him all this stuff and said, here, embroider all this for the NBA Combine. We're like, oh, cool businessman. Got talking to him. We're like, hey, we'll buy this warehouse that you own on the street. He owned too. He's like, yeah, I'll own or finance it to you. And he was a military guy. He was in the Navy. So we just connected. And I was like, you know what? This guy's willing to work with us. I believe in our broker that he can find us a tenant. It's a little bit of cash that we have on hand. Let's try it out. And it was really just dipping our toe in. And it was also, the first 7-unit apartment building we bought. It was like, well, we know how to do 7 houses. Why can't I do 7 apartments under one roof? And it was like, well, let's do this. Let's do that. Let's make sure all these things check out. I'm sure there's something we don't know, but let's just try it. And that's what we did. And it just kind of, as you started, that one, 7 units on Arian Park, which is off like Southwestern Boulevard over West. We put it under, well, first off, we weren't the first buyer on it. Broker came back to us and said, hey, the other guy bailed. Do you want to buy it? We said, sure. He calls us up like 3 weeks before closing. Me and Dan still got the jitters. By the way, we have like 100 houses by now, and we're sweating a 7-unit building. And the guy's like, yo, listen, someone's willing to pay you $75,000. It was $75,000 to get out of this contract. And we said, you know what? It's a pretty good vote of confidence. No, we're good. We're going to buy it. Calls us back a couple weeks later, increase the offer. We're like, nope, we're going to keep it. Like, we just have a good feeling. And that's really what got us to the next level, was just dipping the toe, and then you start to figure it out,
And how are you finding the multifamily and commercial deals? Was that through just brokers, or was it through certain different websites?
Yeah, me, I'm a broker network guy. But yeah, I would always look at Crexy, CoStar, all the sites. LoopNets, all that stuff. Well, LoopNet is CoStar's front door. But all that's fun stuff, right? I look all the time. Just, I want to see what deals look like. I want to understand it. You guys can underwrite, anyone can underwrite a single family house like that in 2 seconds, because you can go on Zillow. You can go
that's kind of what have kept me. Like, I've done a lot of single family stuff. Nick owns 100 single family houses. But the breakthrough into that new space, it's scary when you've just done it this way, the single family way, so long, and it's like, it's making money. It's hard to, for me anyway, it's hard to like mentally, okay, now I got to learn a new underwriting task. I got to figure out how to underwrite these buildings. And then the whole like refinance game where like my 30-year mortgages aren't going to change. Like, they're not going to change for the worst anyway.
Yeah, so I'll get back to don't let me forget the broker, why I deal with brokers. But what I would say is, and I heard this at an event that I was at, and I've never let it go, is like, dude, what took you to go from 0 to 5 million and 5 million to 10 million and 10 million to 20 million? It's all different. And most people are too afraid to blow their business up. Like, right, we got 100 houses. It would have been easy to just say collect. You guys mentioned Mark Owen, Sean Magner, a couple other guys that have been on your podcast. It's like, just be easy to collect and just keep collecting the houses. It was so much harder to blow our business up and go do industrial and multifamily. Dude, the first real deal that I raised $1 million for, mind you, we have these small commercial. I'm like literally sweating bullets trying to get people to answer. I could have just gave up then and said, you know what, this deal isn't for us. Let's just get out. We'll stay in the single family game. But taking those leaps from what took you to go from 0 to whatever number you want to put there, I say 0 to 5, is a completely different skill set than it takes you to go from 5 to 10. And for you to blow your business up, and I don't want to say it like that, but to go look at new assets, you got to go back to the drawing board, and nobody wants to go back because it gives you the agita of when you first did a deal. Like, am I doing everything right? I'm scared. And it's a really uncomfortable place to be because you're in a comfortable spot now, but you got to get uncomfortable again and say, well, it's just an extra 0. I got to take an extra second to underwrite this deal. And once I pick this up, I'll figure out how to get back to how I am today with single family stuff. And that's really how we look at it. It took a lot of work to get to that point, but now we can look at industrial deals or commercial deals in general and say, all right, this smells like a deal. I want to take the next steps.
Yeah. Do you find that in that space there's more competition with like more? So I underwrote a deal once. This was like a couple of years ago. I had no business getting involved in it. It was like 24 units. This was like a couple of years into it, and a company came and bought it for like, I don't know, $300,000 more than what I thought I could buy it for at the top line. And come to find out that they're, a big company, institutional kind of investors. Do you find that space has more of that kind of competition?
Sure. You don't know other people's capital stack, right? Like when you're doing single family, the barrier to entry is so easy, but you can also bet I can look at so-and-so and say, well, I know they only got $100,000 in their well. Like, we're all bidding, and it's really easy also to say, well, I can go on whatever. I'm just going to use Zillow. Let's pick on Zillow. I can go on Zillow and figure out the value immediately, or MLS, I can immediately figure out the value. So you can only pay so much for this because you don't have an unlimited well of capital. You step into the commercial space, all of a sudden you're playing against Blackstone, private equity firms, publicly traded companies that have unlimited sources of capital that could potentially be way cheaper than you, right?
And
so
they could afford to lose money for
they could afford to
X
lose
amount of years.
They could be a legacy. They could be a legacy wealth or a sovereign fund or whatever they call that, where they're investing money from Saudi Arabia and 5% return is insanely high for them.
Right.
Where we're looking for 20% plus, right? So to say it can be more competition, but the competition's also harder because you don't know what other people are looking for. So the way, again, to go back to your question is, I work the broker network because in the commercial world, the certainty that a deal gets done is exponentially more important. So I'm pretty good at building the relationship with the brokers. You know, I find something in common. We have good conversation. Next, you know, they're bringing me off-market deals on the way down here. I'm working on a somewhat on-market deal that's got a massive environmental issue, but the broker knows that we're willing to take the risk. He's going to go advocate for me, and he knows I need a massive discount on it because he wants to get the money, right? If I'm dealing with the seller, they're like, I don't care it's got an environmental problem. I know that I can sell it for X, Y, and Z. I'll just fix it and never fix it. Now he's got a broker telling him, yo, dude, you're never going to fix this. This thing has got a massive environmental issue. Why don't you just sell it to Ian because he wants his fee, right?
Right.
And that's how I view it. And it's like, okay, and I also like to find the brokers that are the same age because I build relationships. When you start and stop, that's why I never really liked the wholesaling game. Great cash. You start and stop the relationship rapport building every single time. Hey, so-and-so seller, my name's Ian, and I have all these houses, and I'm a fireman. Whereas I build a relationship with that broker, and it's like, you know, I like Ian. Let me send him a deal.
Yeah.
Actually, no, they're all starting to come in before they hit the market. Now you're kind of at a competitive advantage.
I also feel like the brokers in that space are better than, because you go into the single family space, especially in the lower end. All the realtors are just numbskulls for the most part that are listing these properties. They don't know. They've never been an investor. They've never invested in anything. And it's hard to work with them in a lot of senses. But I feel like in the commercial space, the brokers are going to be just better because there's less of them. There's less, you know.
Well, it's a sophistication of buyer, right? Well, let's go backwards. Barrier to entry for a real estate agent in the single family world is, got my license, what do I do next, right? In the commercial world, they've taken the time, they've learned the space, they've continued to grind away to figure out what, you know.
They probably worked for under another broker for a long time.
On top of that, the sophistication of the buyer, the questions that they ask, right? Like we're in the process of selling some of our stuff and just the details that we had to go through to say, here's the story, this is what we've done, here's the rent roll, here's the environmentals, here's everything else. You know, they're looking for the correct information because, again, it's feast or famine over there. They want to get deals done, and there's no pressure to buy in the commercial space. People are always moving. People have the American dream. They want to buy another house. Like, it's still the American dream. No matter what the news tells you, people want to own property.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big difference. There's a motivation factor because I watch them. Like, when the market changed a little bit, they're calling me every day. Hey, what are you buying? Yo, offer owner financing. Yo, do this. They're trying to get deals done and get them to the closing table. So
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between financing like a single family deal to going to the commercial, multifamily, or just commercial deal?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a massive difference. I mean, I think there's probably some interesting loan products that exist in the single family space, like the DSCR loans and some other stuff like that that people have executed on, and that, you know, you get 30-year terms on, and you never have to guess what your rate's going to change to. And if you're fiscally responsible enough, you'll pay it off in 30 years and you're done. In our space, you know, depending what lender you have, you might have a 5-year rate adjustment. So every 5 years, a rate just adjusts on you, and now you went from 3% to 7% today, or, you know.
That's another kind of scary thing that just happened probably to a lot of people, right?
Yep.
And did that happen to you, or do you know people that happened to? Like, you were locked in at a 4% rate, and then we had this crazy rate hike,
Yep.
and
Yeah,
people were like, Now, because what happens in the commercial space for the listeners, like as soon as the rates go up, the value of the buildings go down because there's less NOI, there's less profit.
Yep.
So at a refi table, you might be asked to come to the table with a significant amount of money.
People
right?
are trying to coin it as the cash-in refi, which I think is a horrible terminology to protect bad assets, but it is what it is. So the cash-in refi is a real thing right now. But yeah, as rates adjust, so rate adjustments, balloons, banks can call. You don't meet certain metrics. If you have certain covenances, they might say, hey, your rent's not where you need it to be. We're calling this loan. Refinance, we don't care. Get us out, right? So there is that. There is also, again, to go back to the purchasing and what you just talked about of, if rates go up, really what people are looking at is a function, or a capitalization rate is really just a function of the debt. So if debt's at 6.5%, people are looking to buy stuff in the 8.5 range. If it's at 4%, they're looking to buy it at the 6%. Or if they're really frothy funds and they're buying really, really nice stuff, they might say, okay, debt's at 4%, I'll buy it for 4% because we're paying cash. And because I could just loan my money out, or I could own the asset in a tax advantaged way. So there's a lot of differences in the loans. And I would say, but the other side, the benefits, I feel like I'm talking about negatives here. Let's talk about the benefits. I could get $1 million. I can make one call right now and get $1 million easier than you can for your $100,000 house, right? Like done. Like we use a life insurance company, and one phone call, some information, I got a term sheet, off we go. And I think that's way more powerful because they want to do the bigger assets. And the work that it takes for me to do that $150,000 deal, and this is what I found out from doing more commercial deals, is doing a $150,000 deal or doing a $15 million deal, it takes the same amount of work, right? That might be a little exaggerated, but in the grand scheme of things, I only have to do, let's say it's $1.5 million. Let's use a realistic number. That's the same as doing 10 houses. Who wants to be in and out of 10 deals when I can do one deal? I can have my whole team on one deal, concentrate on 30 apartment units or whatever it is, renovating all of them under one roof, one capital raise, one lender talk, one closing. It's not 10 in and outs, not a ton of transactions. And that's what we like better about the commercial space. Way more methodical, and you can take your time, and there's a clearer path to what you want to do. It's a little more predictable,
So as far as the commercial financing, and I know you said you used life insurance, but I'm assuming you started with like small local banks. Yeah. And did they have to underwrite you as an individual, even though it was a larger deal? Yeah.
So, and the way we did it was just a natural progression. We started with hard money lenders on single family houses. Then we said we got to refinance them. We tried every dumb loan product that's out there, and we went to a local bank here that's based out of York. And they changed our careers because we didn't really know what we were doing, but they gave us a guidance line of credit. And we're like, oh, cool, we got $2 million to spend. Let's go buy a bunch of properties and do it. So we were borrowing from hard money lenders, and then we would go to them and say, refinance it right onto our guidance line. But that's where we learned how to fill out a personal financial statement. That's where we learned we really figured out that we needed to be really good at bookkeeping and printing out balance sheets and profit and loss statements and being able to produce the reports that they want. Then what that did was it took us to the next level. So then when we bought that 7-unit apartment building, we said, hey, same bank, we want to buy the 7-unit apartment building. Cool, just get us the rent roll, do a survey, do an environmental. I only had to take 3 extra steps that I wasn't used to doing. We buy that because they already had all of our data. I was like, okay. So then I talked to this life insurance company. I'm sweating bullets. So I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do. He's like, well, just send me a PFS. I was like, oh shit, I already did that before. Here you go, man. He's like, cool, just put it on my sheet, do X, Y, and Z. You're good to go. All right, well, I know how to do a personal financial statement. I had all my K1s. I had all of our rent roll. I had everything ready to go. So like taking that natural progression allowed me to do it. But that's really the big difference. And a lot of people, this is why I like doing podcasts, because I talk a lot. So you can tell me to shut up whenever. I'm sorry, I was just thinking about that. Like, man, I'm talking a lot, but that's why I'm here. A lot of people aren't willing. I want a non-recourse loan. I'm like, yo, bro, non-recourse loan on like a $200,000 house. Like, what are you doing? Are you in or are you out? And I think that allowed us again. It was like, hey, man, we need recourse on the first deal. Okay, well, I'll do that. Again, building relationship. The loan broker, the debt broker is the same age as us, right? His kids are the same age. It's like, yep, I'm going to build this relationship. Yeah, we'll take that risk because we like this deal. We're all in or we're all out. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I don't know any better. I'm in. Let's do it. Now, finally, after $20 million of loans. He's like, hey, man, I think the next one we can do non-recourse. All right, you're finally talking my language. But that's been after financing all my single-family stuff, all of our apartment stuff, all of our storage stuff. I finally gotten to this point where we're having a conversation about non-recourse debt.
And that's with the same bank from York?
No, this is with the life insurance company.
Okay.
So what the problem became was the banks you'll start to see is they have like lending limits. They want your deposits. They want all this crap. And it was like, as we started with the commercial space, it's easier to buy out of state. We were buying in West Virginia. We were buying in Maryland. Next, we started buying storage in Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi. I was like, dude, I'm all over this country. I need a bank that's with me everywhere, and I want service. And some of these smaller banks feed to death on some of the dumb stuff, and it's like, hey, thanks for the loans, but you can't finance me in Alabama. Now this small bank in Alabama wants my relationship deposits, and I'm like, well, I'm not having bank accounts all across this country. And that was the benefit of going with a debt broker that's a life insurance company, because that allowed us to go to Chase Bank, have a national presence, the best online platform there is, because they are the giant, right? They spend a ton of money on tech. It's really easy to use their systems. And then I got a debt broker who's like, I don't want your deposits. I want your business. I don't care about anything else, because the life insurance company does not care about our deposit relationship. And that's been the benefits of graduating to that level.
So is it the life, because I'm not super familiar with that, so the life insurance policy is able to fund the deals?
No, so
They're a company that just sells money.
So
basically.
let's use Nationwide, and you buy your life insurance from them. You buy all your insurance from them, right? And I'm not even a client, right? You don't even have to be a client, but they have all their subscribers that are buying life insurance and all this other stuff. All they're doing is taking that capital and reinvesting it into real estate. They're lending, they're PE, they're doing all the stuff that we all do to get exponential returns to outperform their losses.
Gotcha.
If you ever read Warren Buffett's book, what's it called, The Snowball Effect or something? He talks about why he bought Geico, and it was specifically for the float capital to have it to be able to invest into other publicly traded companies to gain control, because he's like, well, if I can gain control, I can get them to outperform my payouts for for Geico, and that's really how they built their business. So it's the same thing. The insurance company that we use, whatever, I don't even know what type of insurance they sell, honestly. Whatever type of insurance they sell, and they lend us money basically at anywhere from 200 to 250 basis points over.
What prime is?
Yeah, not even prime. What the 3, 5, 7, or 10-year treasury is, because their investment thesis is, if I don't loan this money out and don't take this risk, I could just buy T-bills, right? And I can get these returns. But for this little bit of risk, I want an extra couple hundred basis points to take on this risk, but presumably they're in a really safe asset, right? First position mortgage and all these other things that allow them to do that, and they get exponential returns that outweigh their losses, and that's how they stay in business.
So they still do like the 5-year arms that local banks will do?
Yeah, so for them,
deals?
they actually do 5-year, they do rate adjustments. So if I buy a 10-year loan, they'll finance it for 20 years, and they'll just readjust my mortgage once at the 10-year mark. If I get a 3-year, it's for 20 years, they'll readjust it 7 times. And that's how it works. So the nice thing is they don't actually call the loan, where some of these banks are like, yeah, I'll finance you for 5 years, but in year 5, you got to get out of here. These guys hold the debt. It's on their books for that 20, 25 or 30-year term, and we roll with them, and it's been good, because again, it takes that layer of, I don't have to guess where I have to go. I get to decide when I want to go, if rates come down, or if we created value, I want to liquidate. All the same principles apply. It's just really allocating and managing capital at that point.
So you obviously had to learn the single family game and then the industrial, commercial, multifamily. Now you had employees with you the whole time. Did you have the same employees, or and did they have to go through that same learning curve, and what did that kind of look like?
Yeah, so hire number 1 is still with us, Ryan Tucker. He runs our operation. I call him our project manager because I'm not comfortable saying COO or some horrible corporate term, but he runs our operation. And as we started getting into the commercial space, it was like, all right, he learned, all right, the apartment building, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and we're starting, as we did apartments, okay, I get it. Industrial, I get it. He might not get every single in and out, which he does, but not everyone's like every single in and out. It's all the same stuff. You're providing clean white boxes, or you're providing clean apartment units that are ready for rent. Sometimes we're adjusting the renovations, sometimes we're not, and it really comes down to managing vacancies, debt collection, and everything else, just like a single family portfolio. It's just at scale, and it might be at one site. Raquel in our office, she sits at White House Manor Apartments that we own over in Northeast, and she manages all the tenants for the whole portfolio, right? She manages all the tenants for the residential portfolio. She manages all the debt collections, all the evictions. She happens to be sitting there, so she handles new leads that come in that want to move in. So everybody has a different place and learns a different piece of the business, and everyone just kind of goes to where they're comfortable. And luckily for us, everyone that kind of goes to where they're comfortable works out for us because we got all the different facets covered.
So at what point did you hire, what was the guy's name, Brian, you said?
Ryan, yeah.
At what point did you hire him? I'm assuming you hired him in the single family when you were just in the single family space. How many units did you have? How did you know that it was the right time to hire him?
Great question. I think we were still flipping houses, so I don't know that we had a big rental portfolio, maybe 15, 20 houses. We were actively fixing and flipping. It had to be sometime between 2016 and 2017. And dude, we were hiring a guy that we were going to pay as much as we were making in the fire department. And I was just like, I don't know, man. But he was working for himself and he wanted some stability.
So that's hard because I had the same thing. I was teaching and I'd transition from full time to like 4 days a week, and then I was 3 days a week.
Yep.
And then I hired an assistant who I was basically paying the exact amount of money that I was making
Yep.
at the school, and the only difference is that I had health benefits at that time.
Yep.
Like I was basically net, we were net zero with health benefits.
Yep.
And that was like a scary moment. I'm like, okay, well, I'm giving away all the money, and like then I'm like, well, what the fuck am I doing working anymore?
Yep.
Like I need to be out. I need to be out there.
Yeah, well, I got a question for that. But yeah, that was the same thing. It was like, dude, we didn't know. He was asking us all kinds of questions. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I just know we're hiring you, and you want to work with us. We want to work with you. This is exciting. And then it was just a massive learning curve. It was like, hey, we need to get him a vehicle. Hey, like, we don't know what the next step is, because he always worked somewhere where he was working towards to get to the top, versus saying, hey, man, you are at the top. You're one of us, and you need to think like us and help us build the systems. And over time that all naturally happened, and he's a good leader of the guys. And as we grow, our goal is to continue to reward him and work towards getting equity in deals and all those types of fun things. And that's been the advantage of doing the bigger deals. But to your point of hiring someone, it was like we hired him, we were paying him as much as we were making, and it was like, man, the day this is my question to you, is like the day you quit, like the day we quit, our business exponentially grew. Mm-hmm. And I think Ryan knew that. It was like, dude, you guys got to get out. You got to get out. You got to get out. And then when we got out, we exploded. But I think it was easy for him to see from inside the business out, where we couldn't see it as much from the outside in almost.
Yeah. So when you got out, where was your focus?
When we got out, we had just bought the 76 unit apartment building over there in the Northeast, had just refinanced it. We were focused on self-storage and multifamily. We have some stuff out in West Virginia, and we kind of hit an explosion in the self-storage space and was actively concentrating on that. And that's really what we concentrated on. And I concentrated on raising capital and growth, because the day I quit, it was like a vote of confidence. Mm-hmm. People were like, oh, shit, you quit? Like, nobody quits teaching. Nobody quits fire department,
That's the
police
same
department.
thing that happened. People started to, everybody questioned it in the beginning. Not until I quit. And then they were like, oh, you quit? Like, they saw it at the time, like we had just bought a house and I quit. And I was like, yeah, at that time also, like, I felt like I was working so much harder because there was no guarantee of the next paycheck.
Yep.
So not only do I have now 30 hours more per week to dedicate to the business, I'm also fucked if this doesn't work out.
Yep.
That's kind of what I think scaled us up. The one thing that you did that I kind of envy, and the new businesses that we're starting, I'm trying to do that, is bringing the top in first. Instead, like, I hired an assistant who was basically just assisting me with the tasks that I couldn't get done, admin, that kind of stuff. But bringing in somebody as like an operator is what we actually interviewed Brandon Turner on our show last year, 2 years ago, and he had that same mindset. He's like, bring in somebody. If you can't pay him enough, give them equity, show them the dream, and then that will propel that business so much faster than trying to build from the bottom.
Yeah, and I don't know that we like intentionally did that, but that was our comfort level. Like, we're construction guys. We enjoy construction. It was like, all right, Ryan can relieve some construction. We can communicate with Ryan the construction that we want. He already had a good sense on his he had a good head on his shoulders that knew what we wanted. But I think that hire became easier for us. If you wanted me to hire an admin office person at that time, I couldn't even begin to tell you how to bookkeep, let alone how do I even get through a contract, because at that time it was like, yep, take it. Where you find, like, I couldn't tell people where I was financing it or how I was doing it. I couldn't direct an admin to do that. So for us, we lucked out, and Ryan became the top, and it was clear and obvious of how that was going to be. But I would tend to agree that, hiring from the top down is an interesting concept, but it's also scary because you got to go put out a lot more money,
right?
Execute a vision, because then the top needs people under them at some point,
and hope that they're the leader that they portray to be. And that is scary. When we started hiring, we have a construction company, property management company, kind of like fully vertically integrated. We started hiring upper level people. That's the thing too, is that some of them they work themselves very well, but then you put them on a team or in charge of a team, and they don't do as well managing the team. So then you got to make adjustments, and you're paying this person, 6 figures or close to 6 figures, and they're not doing what you intended them to be doing.
Yeah, we had a situation like that on the storage side when we fired the property managers. We were using third party, and I hired from the top down, just basically step in and say, we were paying property manager X, save a few bucks, let me hire someone to step in and hire that lead role. And it wasn't what it was promised.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, well, this isn't going to work. And we were like, all right, let's go back and start over, and let's promote from within, people that have been in the company on the storage side for a while. Let's promote from within and have them graduate on that side. So that's been interesting. That was a fail. I mean, but here's the other thing. The maturity level of hiring and firing has, like, our timeline of being able to put up with someone like that isn't working out has gone down. It's shortened,
right.
And like Gary Vee talks about, well, hire and fire quicker. And I'm like, how do you do that? Like, that's scary as shit. Now it's like, oh man, I hired, this ain't working out, But I think we got a really good leadership learning lesson from the fire department, because you saw the chiefs that worked, the lieutenants, the captains, and you really got to see what real leaders are from that side of things that I think translate onto this side of how to motivate, how to lead, how to get people to do what you need to do without being a dick in a certain. And now look, there's a time to be a dick. Hey, we're we're in combat, or this place is on fire. Now is not the time to question me. Right?
Yeah.
This is what's going down. Okay, well, when there's a fire burning in our business, sometimes it's, okay, I don't like to do this, but we're the boss. Here we go. 9 times out of 10, it never happens, because Ryan's already got the solution, because he thinks just like us. On the same side is like, there's plenty of time to talk about how should we do it. Let's talk about this. Let's create the plan. Let's execute. Yeah, man, because we view all of our employees as entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs. I don't care if you're the maintenance guy, my intern that's been on his phone the whole time as we're sitting here recording, or you're the top level guy. In the end, you work on your own schedule. You create your own things. You do your own things. I'm not going to micromanage you. Now, if something gets screwed up, like I come in and, hey, man, you missed a post on Monday. Bro, you let me down. What's up? Yeah. Right? It's just that simple comment of like, dude, we're on the same team here. And that's what's important to me, of knowing that they have the autonomy and the bandwidth to do what they want. I don't want to be micromanaged. I sure as shit ain't going to micromanage
Right.
you.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing too, is just keeping people motivated around you, whether they're employees, people on your team, the brokers that you're working with, like keeping them motivated to keep the dream alive. I think that's important. I like having, like, we do like team barbecues and stuff like that. I think that's for culture,
We talk about that. It's hard for our storage and storage side of things to build the culture, to understand, like, here in Baltimore, something happens, boom, we're done. Like, it's fixed. On the storage side of things, it's third party, not third party, but it's a FAR. They don't understand our culture of like, yo, there's something burning, go figure it out. Like, get it done. You don't like that tenant, kick them out. Like, just be done with it. I don't want to hear about it. It's done. So really so we have two of our employees here in Maryland that oversee that operation that have been trying to express, hey, this doesn't get done, this is what's going to happen. Like we let someone go today. Hey man, if you're not going to do this, then you don't need to work here anymore. And they're able, you know what? Let me go fix that. So culture is big and it's hard to express across. And I think it's easier to build from a nucleus in and out than it is to start out and work your way back in. So
I can imagine it's harder when you're spread out like that. So we blew past this, but you wrote a book. This was way back in your single family days. What did that process look like? I still use some of the rules that I read in that book. No dishwashers, the ceiling fans. Like there are things that I took into my head, and we focus. Our own portfolio right now is mainly high-end stuff like Canton, Fells, Fed, like 4 bedrooms, people just graduated Hopkins, that kind of thing. But in any of the subsidized stuff that we're doing on the construction and property management side, I still follow all of those rules. What made you write the book?
Yeah, a lot of it was just at that time traveling around, hitting the old circuit, go drinking with the boys, hitting all the RIA meetings and whatever else was going on at that time. And just, a lot of people were, oh, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Guys at work, how you doing it? And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to put all this info in a book. I can't say egotistically, I wasn't like, this thing blows up, I'll be sick. But it didn't happen, right? But in the same sense, it's just good information. It's good credibility, right? So I can't say that I physically wrote the book, but I did something like this. I set up cameras and I just talked into the camera. Here's every presentation I've ever done. Here's everything I believe in. Here's every podcast. And I found a ghostwriter. I gave it to her. She wrote it. I read it. I said, this does not sound like me. I need it to be simple, like simpleton. I'm talking. And she's like, no problem. Few edits. I was like, all right, that sounds much better. Check the information. And we produced the book. But then what the book became was it became a marketing thing. It became a source of credibility. Probably at the time, if you had your show and I was like, I want to come on your show. You're like, who is this cat? Like, whatever. I'm like, I wrote this book. And you're like, oh, yeah, dude, like, let me have you on. Or for capital investors, it's great. Like, you sit down and talk to somebody, you're telling about everything that you've done, and they're like, yeah, right, bro. And then they go on to Amazon, type in your name, and the first thing that comes up is your book. You're like, oh, okay, dude's legit. Go on to YouTube, type in your name, boom, here's all these digital assets. You go on Instagram, here. It's like, all right, it's just a credibility piece in the whole stack of things that, do I need that? No. Do I enjoy giving back and helping people that want to get started? Sure. I read a book that helped me get started. I had someone show me the way, and I just think it's the best way to share information without having to get on the phone with someone every single day. Because if you wanted to, I could just give my phone number out right now and never be able to get off the phone and help people every single day. But in this way, we can help a lot more people than just one person that I'm talking to at that time.
Are most of your single family now Section 8 properties?
Yeah, most of them are still subsidized. Just kind of what we've done. As things are starting to turn over, the subsidized game is not keeping up with some of the market rents. We've had some good luck in certain areas with cash tenants that have gone better. And we never did cash until we bought the apartment buildings, the 7-unit and then the 76 unit. We had never done cash tenants until then. It was very, very far and few between. I bet you I only had 2 tenants out of 100 on the books. Now I could say we're probably more like, don't include the apartments on the single family side. It's probably 75-25, 75% still subsidized, but we're more active to the market to say, hey, first come, first serve. I mean, 2014 to 18, subsidized outperformed cash tenants. I can't say that's true today. In
certain areas,
in certain areas, and until the government catches up on some of this inflation stuff that's going on, and they're going to have a problem. At a certain point, people aren't going to accept the vouchers because they don't outweigh what you're paying for the cost of the properties nowadays. So,
what are you seeing in Pigtown right now?
This is a prime example, right? Like you could probably go rent a 2-bedroom house down there right now. 2 to 3 bedrooms, right? You're probably getting anywhere like 15, 16. I've seen stuff upwards of 1,700 on the lower side of Washington Boulevard. And Section 8's still in that mid 13 to mid 1,400 range. And it's like, well, do I want to take on the risk and the headache right now when I can get a decent cash tenant to do that? I'm like, so we waver back and forth, especially we own some stuff down on that lower side of Washington Boulevard that heads towards Federal Hill that it's like, I'd rather get a cash tenant. And honestly, some of the comps down there, we're into these houses for under 120 grand. And, stuff selling 220 plus, and you're just like, stuff on Washington Boulevard is selling at 220 plus, and you're just sitting there going,
crazy.
You know what? Maybe now's a great time to exit. I don't know. So we're kind of taking it on a case by case basis.
Yeah, that Pigtown area is funny. It's like one block in the one direction. I know Nick loves you. You have a lot over there. I've had great luck, and then I've had terrible luck.
Yep.
Like you get up. I did one. We had, I forget what, I think 1200 block of Washington. It was tough.
Yeah.
I think it was broken into 3 times. We had toilets stolen out, like toilets that were installed, like stolen out of the house, like everything just stripped down like 2 or 3 times. I'm like, God damn, this is crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like, but then you go up like 4 blocks, and it's like you can sell a house. It's $300,000.
Yep. Yeah. If you go to the bottom side, going towards the water, going towards Federal Hill, prices, actually, it's the first house we ever flipped was 1112 Scott. 1112 Scott Street, because then we did 1112 Steelton. It's crazy that both numbers worked out the same. But anyway, 1112 Scott Street was the first house we ever flipped. And back then, I sound like I'm old now, but 2014, I guess it's 10 years ago, we sold that thing for $129,000. And we were jumping for joy. I bet you that thing's worth every bit of $229, $230 right now.
I have 1136 Steelton. That's over in Dundalk, city side of Dundalk. Yep.
Yep, they were the first 2 flips we did, and it was funny because like, damn, how do we get 1112 again? That's crazy. And off we went. But yeah, we and that same thing. I bet you if you look at values over there, they're climbing. The values are climbing, and I think Warren Buffett talks about it is like if you can stand the test of time, you're eventually going to make money in some way, shape, or form, whether it's from cash flow from rent or appreciation or equity. I mean, when we first started. We're talking about self-storage, multifamily, all this crazy stuff that we're talking about. When I first started, to go back to the core root of things of why you should get started, I said, if I buy a house and it's worth $150,000 and I pay my mortgage off and it's still worth $150,000, someone paid me to pay the mortgage off, I cash flowed the whole time, and now I got a $150,000 savings account that I didn't have to contribute to. Mm-hmm. That's how this whole thing started.
Yep.
That's it. That simple mindset of that, and that's how we went.
So one more thing about the book, and I'll put it down. The book for you, what was the original cost for you to get the ghostwriter, record yourself, and then what did it return? Because I always talk about like the podcast, for example. Like this podcast doesn't directly make us money, but it does it's the living resume. It's on YouTube, so it's kind of a loss leader. It's like the Costco chicken. I don't know if they lose like millions of dollars on chicken every year or whatever. Is that what the book was for you? Did you make any money selling the book?
Yeah, I mean, we made a few bucks. We did some consulting here and there for a few people. We thought we wanted to go that route. It's just like I don't know why real estate's like this. It was like, oh, you have some success. Do you want to coach? Oh, let me try this out. I don't want to coach. It's not really for me. I don't want someone's success on my shoulders. I'll consult you. We can have a conversation around it. But yeah, I mean, it cost us a few grand to write. I mean, dude, with the VA nowadays, Canva, you could probably go on there and make a book cover in about 2 seconds. And the ghostwriter was the hardest part. I think I spent about $2,500 to have her write it and revise it.
Oh damn! It's not that bad. I thought it was going to be a lot
cheap.
more.
Like I went on, I found some like ghostwriting VA website. This lady was up in Wisconsin or Michigan or somewhere up there.
Now with AI, it's probably even easier.
Yeah, I'm sure you could write a book in about 2 seconds on AI, but that's all we did. I just, and especially if you guys are doing these all the time, you could probably pull your transcripts and probably turn it into a book, but I just gave it to her. We had a conversation around it. She loved the idea and she wrote it. And what I would say is the return, sure, there was a cash value return. Did it outpace what I wanted to do? Absolutely not, because I don't know that I took it seriously enough to turn it into a whole vertical. But the credibility piece, the living resume like you talk about, everything in between, the deal flow that it brought, everything, the people that it introduces me to is literally priceless.
Right.
Like I cannot put a monetary value on it. I'll give you a prime example. The book led me into someone to come and consult with us who paid us $15,000. And then they turned into a $250,000 investor when they said, you know what? This book sounded great. This consulting class sounded great. The few properties I have are not working for me. You know what? Let me just give you cash. And that's it. So that's, again, priceless. And you can't put a value on that for the exponential return that'll not only get us, but get the person who invested with us.
Yeah, that's great, man. Well, Ian, I don't have anything else for you today, man. We appreciate you coming
got
out.
two more questions.
You got two more questions.
more.
Oh,
Okay.
boy.
So your employee Ryan, just to get an understanding, so does he just handle primarily managing maybe turnovers in the single family space, or what is his job
No,
role?
he runs the whole operation now. Everyone reports to him. So our maintenance guys report to him, and Raquel basically. Our office admin takes in the service calls. He manages those guys on that side of the house. On the storage side, the lead over there, Andrew and Dawn, they report back to Ryan. He manages all the payroll. He keeps an eye on all the debt collections, all the evictions. Dan's doing it from an accounting standpoint. It's kind of like a checks and balances. Hey, did you see this tenant? Get rid of them. Let's do this. He's helping move the pieces. He's an integral part of the whole operation. He's in the numbers. He's in the know. He knows a lot of people. He understands the markets. So it's been real fun to watch him grow, spread his wings, and really just honestly, because it was kind of a fight at the beginning. You were asking this earlier, was like hiring from the top down, and we didn't realize we were hiring from the top down. He's like, yo, give me more, give me more, give me more. I'm like, I don't know. But he wanted it because he wanted to be in control, because he wants to help the company grow. He's always big on how does the company grow, and the fact that he's in all the information, like he's in, Sean, who's here, from the digital marketing side of things, he's like, yo, Sean, what are you doing? I notice your payroll every week. Like, what are you actually doing around here? Let me see video. Like, he's even in that, and it doesn't even involve him. So he's very in tune with what's going on.
Awesome.
You got one more, or is that?
I do have one more. So, I don't want to keep it too long. Do you have any properties in Pigtown that you're selling?
It's always a conversation.
Oh, God.
We can talk about
Let's
this.
do
You want
that
to buy
off
more?
air.
I'm in. So,
All right, guys. Well, Ian, again, thank you for coming down. You came all the way from Philly today?
yeah, came down from Philadelphia,
We
2.5
appreciate
hour
that.
Yeah,
ride.
thanks for
so
coming.
It was well worth it.
Yeah, I thought you were Maryland local, so I appreciate you coming down here, man.
Yeah, man.
Until next time, guys. Our next event is releasing today,
Yes,
July 18th.
July 18th.
Be there. CVP's in Towson. All right, guys. Thank you.